Hi everyone, today we'll be having a chat with Kristal Duncan-Williams, who is the project lead at Youth Capital. We'll be speaking about a very important campaign that Youth Capital has started, which is the Fund Our Futures campaign. We'll also discuss youth unemployment in the country.
Sure.
Before we get into the Fund Our Futures campaign, can you paint a picture of the current state of unemployment in South Africa?
Sure. So there are nearly 9 million young people that are not in any form of education, employment, or training. That sounds like a big number, but for any South Africans who have watched soccer or some kind of big sports event at the F&B Stadium, we'd have to fill that stadium 90 times to house all of the young people that are not in any employment, education, or training. That's the biggest stadium we have, so I use that as a point of reference. But just to give an idea of the scale of the problem, and then to add to that, most of the young people who are unemployed have never had work experience. So 8 out of 10 young people who are unemployed have never had a job. And as I'm sure you and I can both attest to, if we, when we first graduate or you first matriculate and you're trying to look for some work, they always ask for work experience, and you can't get work experience if you've never had a job, and you can't get a job because you have no work experience. So young people are kind of stuck. And this is really where public employment programs come in and fill the gap, and have been shown to have success in Brazil and India and other countries. So it's not a new thing in the South African context. That's really where the government kind of steps in to fill a gap.
I think that in itself justifies why funding should continue. It's probably one of the most, one of the most effective initiatives that government implemented, and now to suddenly just cut funding for it, I don't think it's right. But can you just touch on how detrimentally this loss of funding for the presidential youth stimulus could further impact unemployment?
Part of the problem why government and Treasury are kind of saying, well, it needs to end, is because the presidential employment stimulus was set up as a COVID response, right? There were 14 different programs under this big umbrella term. And so people are like, well, COVID's done, the world's moved on, so things that are COVID response, should be ending. But I don't think we can think of it like that, right? So young people were struggling to find work and to get work experience before COVID came along. It just kind of made things worse, but we were on this trajectory anyway. And so young people would be in this situation whether there was COVID or not. And this isn't, a lot of, if you look at the Basic Education Employment Initiative specifically, which is the initiative that we're really focused on because it's the one that had the most impact for young people specifically, a lot of young people placed in schools around COVID protocols. So people might say, well, that's all past now, nobody's sanitizing, people aren't wearing masks, we don't need this. But what they don't realize maybe is that the majority of young people were actually placed in classrooms. So some young people were doing those COVID protocols. But if you think about it, we know that in South Africa, we have an education crisis. We had the Pearl study come out recently that showed that 4 in 5 grade 4s can't read for meaning in any language, right? So the majority of young people in our schools, of learners in our schools, in these foundation phases where literacy is really key, because, if you can't read for meaning, you can't actually do anything. And we're failing young people that early on in laying these very strong foundations. And so young people are in classrooms, think about no fee and low fee schools where you have ratios of one teacher to 50 kids in a class. Having just one extra person in a class can make a huge difference. And now it becomes 1 to 25 instead of 1 to 50. And we've, through the campaign, we've heard from 100 young people and counting about their experience. And something that comes through very clearly is young people say, I can see the difference, even though I was only there for a few months. When I started, this boy couldn't read. And when I left, he could read. When I started, this girl was struggling with this math problem, and I could help her with it. So, this program, particularly the Basic Education Employment Initiative, and there are other programs within that, like the Social Employment Fund, that are also really valuable. But the one that we're speaking about specifically, you're actually getting double, like bang for your buck. In other words, you're getting a young person work experience, and you're also giving extra support in schools. And so I think, for young people, this is great. But for everybody else, we all care about education, whether we have children in school, whether we're planning on having children. We know that getting education right is really key for the future of South Africa. And here is like the program's already set up. We already know that it has impact. We just need to keep funding it.
Yes, I was just saying to a colleague earlier on, it's so sad because I've heard stories myself of teaching assistants and general assistants that now want to go into teaching. They've been so inspired by the month that they spent in the classroom working with kids, that they it motivated them to become teachers. And it really was the start of something so positive. Like we saw how many people were employed, and the difference they made in the classroom. Like, we all know the situation in our education system, and just having an extra helping hand, an extra set of eyes to assist, um, the learners, it's honestly just one of the most impactful programs that we've had in the country. And like I said, the initiative impacted the lives of so many young people, and also the role it had to contribute to skills development. Can you just speak maybe a bit about the skills development aspect of the program?
Sure. And I think another thing I want to highlight, we're speaking about these young people and the impact. I don't think, everybody necessarily realizes the reach of the program, right?
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a handful of schools. We're talking about almost every single public school across the country. No other program in the history of South Africa has reached into rural areas in the way that this program has, right? These are schools that really need this extra support. These are young people living in communities where there's no other way to make money. And so these schools really need the support. And then young people are getting money in their pockets to put back into their local economy, township economy, where there isn't money coming in. So, I just think like anybody listening just got to understand like
understand how meaningful it is, how impactful it really is. It's not just 50 schools across the country. It's basically
almost all 23,000 schools. I just got the list of schools now because we're going to be obviously pushing a lot of campaigns. You can look out for our infographics we're going to be making over the rest of the month of September. But, just 23,000 schools, that's massive. So in terms of skills, you think, in the classroom, they're learning, maybe skills that teachers have, and they're getting exposure, as you say, to maybe want to be a teacher, which is great because we know that the majority of our teachers are actually about to retire. So in the next 7 years, we have, more than half the teaching population is reaching retirement age. So that's a real, an even bigger problem than 1 teacher to 50 learners. So we want to expose young people. It's great that they see that, because maybe they're like, oh, actually, I don't want to be a teacher. So then they don't waste a Funzilo Shaka bursary going to study something. They don't waste their time studying something that they actually don't want to do. These, if young people are exposed through this teaching assistant program and they love it, then they know, like, I'll go into early childhood development, or I'm going to go to be, and that's really great. But the other thing about schools, which even myself I hadn't thought about, is it's such a great place to get a range of skills. So you're in the classroom, but you're learning administrative work. You're doing roll call. You're learning how to use basic Microsoft programs like Excel and Word. You're learning how to communicate with other members of the staff room. You're doing conflict resolution. We hear the story about them breaking up fights between the kids. You're doing conflict resolution between the learners in the classroom. So you're learning computer skills, you're learning admin skills, you're learning communication skills over and above, basic literacy, because a lot of these young people are reading champions or other terminology, but basically teaching young kids to read. So it really exposes you to a range of skills. And we even hear stories where some young people say, actually, I preferred the admin. I didn't actually like being in the classroom, but I like being in the office, and I like doing, helping out with the admin or the finance team or whatever it is. So it allows a young person to say, well, I enjoyed this and I'm good at this, and therefore my next step should be whatever it is. And so that's really great. And everybody who comes through the program, there are online courses that they can do and basic training that they can do. But I think there's even more opportunity. We're in phase 4 of the program now. Continued funding means the ability to continue to learn what skills we need to impart, better ways to do that. We know some young people have said, well, some of the courses are online and we struggle with connectivity because we're in a rural area, or load shedding, or whatever it is. So, there's opportunity to build on that, but only if we continue to fund the program.
you were just mentioning earlier, and I think it's so important that we need to also highlight the soft skills that these young people are learning, because most of the time everyone is speaking about the hard skills that are so important, but it's the soft skills that matter even more, like your communication, conflict resolution, leadership skills, taking action. Those are the type of skills that they're also learning, which is amazing, you know. Um, so I think maybe let's get into the campaign, because we were speaking I think we covered almost everything that I wanted to speak about the teaching assistants. But let's get into this amazing campaign, the Fund for Our Futures campaign. Give us a brief overview and how it works to our viewers that's hearing about it for the first time.
Sure. So Fund Our Futures.
I just want to say, like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. Like,
Thanks.
amazing.
It's an awesome team, not me. I am not the communications person, but awesome team at Youth Capital, and in partnership with Greenpeace, we have launched this Fund Our Futures campaign. We launched it back on Mandela Day already, because we really thought that was a key moment to launch the campaign. We knew that there is no secured funding for the presidential employment stimulus beyond March of 2024. So that means there's the cohort phase 4 now. Most of them are in employment in the schools until sometime this month. And there's no funding after that. Some assistants might get funded to the school finding their own funding, but from the government side, the funding ends now. And so we know that with a medium-term budget speech about to take place, now the date confirmed for the 1st of November, we really wanted to have a roaring behind the ministers saying, you have to continue funding this. We know that there's fiscal constraints. We know that everybody wants a piece of the pie, and that the Treasury and the minister are under a lot of pressure. But really, we need to keep the door open for this, because if the funding for this stops, to get this scale and reach again is unlikely to be repeated. And so we really wanted to get the minister to hear our voices, and we want South Africans to get behind us. So there is a petition, a letter that we've written to the Minister of Finance and the National Treasury, and we're asking everybody to sign the petition, and it's all over social media and on our website. And I'm sure you'll add the link to this. And then also to any young people who have been part of the teaching assistance program, doesn't matter what phase, 1, 2, 3, 4, reach out to us on socials, reach out to us on our WhatsApp line, and tell us about your experience. We're hearing from young people. We've had a young person write their story up as a blog post, which is on our website. We'd love to get more of that. If you get in touch with us, you want to make a little video, we can help give you some tips on how to do that. And then also to teachers and parents that might be listening. You know, we need to hear from you as well. Young people are advocating for themselves. You know, as I said, to date, we've got, you know, over 100 stories from young people, but we would love to hear from teachers and principals and parents and learners, if they're old enough, about what impact these assistants have had in your school, in your community, and why you think that they should be continued to be funded.
I just hope that so many people reach out and add their voice to this, because I mean, in the beginning we were speaking about how impactful it is. So when is the deadline for adding signatures to the petition before it gets sent off to the final?
We were hoping to close the petition next week, but that was under the premise that the budget speech was going to be around the 3rd week of October, because that's usually when it is. Given that the budget speech has just been pushed back by almost 2 weeks, we are going to leave the petition running for a bit longer. So people have until the end of September. 30th of September to add your voice and sign the petition. As I said, the links are all over our social media. Follow us on social media to hear the voices and stories from young people themselves. And we really would love to get some other voices in there as well.
The easiest way to access the petition is to go onto your website. That would be great.
Yes, so youthcapital.co.za. You can follow us on social media, Youth Capital SA, on all social media platforms. And the links will also be dropped in there. But youthcapital.co.za.
We'll add all the links on the description for our video as well. Oh, that's so amazing. I really just hope people get involved and show support. That leads me to my next question. I know we spoke about it in the beginning. We were speaking about some of the other programs under the presidential employment stimulus. But what other programs was initiated maybe that it might not have been on be on the same scale as the PYEI? What other programs will have been
yeah, so the other
funding?
Yeah, so the other key one that we think, so of course there's 14 programs and we're under no illusion that government's going to fund all 14. But I think the two key ones that we're really pushing for, the other one is the Social Employment Fund, which you have partnered with the Social Employment Network to push for support and funding for that as well. And that program is also unique because that's not full-time work, it's part-time work. Yeah, but and it's not just a focus on young people, but it's working with civil society. So there's a serious partnership and collaboration between civil society or on the ground who know the needs of the community and government who are saying, here's a little bit of money, and in partnership funding work in communities that benefits the community. So things that the community needs. So it gives the person who gets it a little bit of money. They can do something else. They can do their side hustle the rest of the time, but they've got part-time work that's giving back to community and they're getting a little bit of money in return. And so that, the scale of that has also been massive and never been seen before. And this partnership between civil society organizations and government is really unique. So that's another one that's really great. Some of the other funding went into the creative sector, agriculture and support to farmers. And of course, all of these things are important. And I think we are going to have to make a case. But I would say the biggest ones and the ones with the greatest reach and scale and impact would be the BEI and the SEF.
Just to touch on, I think I wanted to ask this question, going beyond the presidential employment stimulus and the other programs, how do you think government and private sector can collaborate to continue and creating sustainable job opportunities for the youth?
So I think there needs to be more conversation with small and medium business owners. A lot of the conversation between government and the private sector historically have been with big corporates and big firms, and that's obviously needed. But everybody reaches a saturation point. We can't solve this crisis with big corporates alone. And small and medium business owners actually make up a large percentage of the population, but a lot of them are kind of one-man or two-man operations. And so we don't think of that as a space for employment. But if government made a more intentional a plan to speak to small and medium businesses and understand from them what are the challenges in growing your business. We started that with a report we released last year called Bridge the Gap, where we spoke to 70 small and medium business owners across the country and asked them, what are your challenges with hiring? And there are incentives through CETA funding or employment tax incentive, but only like 2% of these business owners are accessing those funds. So government has made money available, which is tax money, but it's either too cumbersome, there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much admin, or you're a small, but too much red tape. You're a small business, you don't have a person that's going to be phoning the CETA and following up with them. Accreditation.
Also being persistent in getting things done. And I think it's such a win-win to invest in smaller businesses and also help get the youth on as well. It's like
exactly, there's obviously a big push now saying to young people, entrepreneurship, self-employment, because you can't create jobs for everyone. But if you've never even worked in a company, how are you supposed to run a business?
How are you supposed to run your own company?
And what better way to learn how to run a business than to work in a small business with a small business owner? I always saying, small business owners don't have to hire young people for forever. But if you can take on a young person for a year, that person can use the skills to go and, be self-employed after that. So it's really a win-win for everybody. It gives a small business owner a little bit of extra help doing day-to-day tasks that free them up to grow the business, to think strategically. And so I think really that small businesses are sometimes just not capable of thinking about these incentives or don't have the capacity to access them. And I think government can be more intentional about opening doors for small businesses in that way.
And I think everyone just needs to adapt the mindset of bring everyone along with us, help each other out and not just us out an entire demographic,
Exactly. And the future of your business is having a customer to buy your product or your service in 10 years' time. And if you don't get young people employed, you're not going to have a customer base. So it really is in the interests of, even the most capitalist person listening to this, to get young people earning. It's good for the country, it's good for business.
Get them contributing to the economy. I think that's the end goal, just so that we can be part of, the youth can be part of just, in the conversation.
Absolutely.
And it's so important. I admire the work you guys do, especially the Fund for Our Futures campaign. I know about a lot of teaching assistants that are so sad that they can't go back to the school they were working in. They currently now again unemployed, no other opportunities. So it really was probably one of the best initiatives ever, and I hope that come budget speech, there's some good news.
We're all hoping.
There's some good news, and then you can really see that all the hard work that youth capital has put in paid off.
I really hope so. I know that there's a lot of tough conversations being had behind closed doors at the moment. So the more pressure we can put on, the better. It's an election year next year. So, think about how we can use our power to kind of drive an agenda that serves everyone.
Especially with the youth. I mean, our vote probably counts.
The biggest portion of the population. Yep.
Literally.
Voting age population.
So do work where it matters. Like really, our youth need all the help.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time and giving insight on the campaign, on the unemployment situation in South Africa at the moment. It's really amazing work that Youth Capital is doing, and I had such an honor to even be speaking to you. And I learned a lot. It was such a great conversation that we had. I think that wraps up everything that I wanted to cover. Anything else that you would like to add, maybe, to our viewers?
No, just follow us on social media. This is our big campaign. It's probably the biggest campaign we've ever run.
Okay.
Yeah, but there always is something new. So when once the budget speech happens, whatever the outcome is,
whether it's good or bad,
we'll continue fighting this fight, but there's also other fights.
There's other fights, other battles.
Please follow us on social media to participate in our campaigns. Don't think that your small action doesn't mean anything. Signing the petition, sharing the petition on your networks, it all adds up.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll have a link to the campaign in the description box, so please support and add your name so that we can have more support being offered to unemployed youth in South Africa. You can also check out our website for more details. Comment down below if you have any experience with the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.